introduction and congratulations on your new new occupation. Welcome again, even on my behalf, to the CAS online seminar. So today's guests will help us understand the messages of enmity and peace building as traced in social media. And with her seminar, she will help us understand the so-called algorithmic reconciliation practices on one hand versus algorithmic aggregations of hate on the other. Her seminar will focus on illuminating the processes of forming and transforming online communities and examining their conscious and unconscious peace-building narratives through the algorithmic web of hashtags and geotags. So for our today's lecturer, Ivana Stepanović, she is a research fellow at the Institute of Advanced Studies in Kőszeg in Hungary, as well as a lecturer at the University of Pannonia in Hungary. She has a Ph.D. in anthropology and MA in human rights and democracy in Southeast Europe, as well as a BA in philosophy. Her research interests include digital ethnography, AI and society, digital futures, algorithmic politics, social media, online privacy, and reconciliation in former Yugoslavia. At this point, I leave the floor to today's guest to pursue her lecture entitled #Balkans, Online Communities and Silent Algorithmic Reconciliation in Former Yugoslavia.
Thank you so much, Zala. It's such a wonderful introduction, and thank you so much, all of you. I'm so happy and honored to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me. I would like to share the screen. So let's begin with the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So I would like to talk about this phenomenon that I call #Balkan and how it really contributes to this silent algorithmic reconciliation in former Yugoslavia, and how do we understand these online communities today? How do they contribute to reconciliation and production of hate on the other side? And I would like to begin with the question, what even is reconciliation? What do we think about it today? And what does it really mean in the context of political science? And on the one hand, one of the key reconciliation mechanisms is transitional justice as a broader concept of securing peace and friendly relations after conflicts. But however, can we even talk about some kind of a universal recipe for reconciliation? What does it really entail? How long does it really take? When can we say that it is over? So I would argue that there is not really a clear definition of the concept of reconciliation, and that reconciliation is a constructed concept and a contested concept, that we can understand it as dynamic rather than static, and that there is a plurality of meanings of the concept of reconciliation, and there are also plurality of interpretation of what it really is. So we cannot really say that we have a clear definition or consensus of what it really means, what it really entails. And I would maybe even make a parallel with the concept of transition, which seems to be a never-ending process. And in this sense, reconciliation also seems to be a never-ending process, especially when we think about the events in the Balkans and after the wars, and how these processes are really continuous and related to these frozen conflicts that are left behind the wars. So the official and unofficial reconciliation projects in former Yugoslavia, in the first place, of course, we have ICTY trials, and then we also have a succession of multiple unofficial maybe initiatives, including storytelling, fostering dialogue between different ethnic groups, then certain commemorations, education practices, projects in the sphere of art and culture, to name a few. But can we even talk about some kind of systemic evaluation of the reconciliation practices? What has been really done so far? In former Yugoslavia, a lot of scholars claim that really we do not really know what, there isn't like a systemic evaluation, really, and what is really the impact of these official and unofficial projects. So a lot of the scholars also claim that this reconciliation, when you think of it in hindsight, doesn't really seem like a successful project. So a lot of them even claim that it's failed, or even at best that it's partial, but we do not hear a lot of narratives about the successful reconciliation. So there's a lot to be done, it seems. So I hope I make you laugh a little bit about this picture. So alternative thinking about the reconciliation. Let's start maybe with thinking about conceptualization of this concept, reconciliation, and maybe this idea of post-reconciliation. Does it make any sense at all? After the official reconciliation projects, they have, as there seems to be a consensus that they produced little effect on the de facto reconciliation among ethnic groups in former Yugoslavia. So should we now think about and start talking about alternative reconciliation practices, or even post-reconciliation? This is one of my key questions. And we have a lot of multitude of initiatives, different initiatives to re-examine this idea of reconciliation, to investigate various practices, for example, cultural, economic, or maybe even merged, and then political practices. And what is there, let me ask, what is the potential to contribute to reconciliation? So one of these concepts that would that we can consider in connection with the reconciliation is transnationalism. In the sense, if we think about it in the sense of various economic cooperation and practices that can be potentially contributing to better relations, good neighborly relations between ethnic groups in Yugoslavia. And then cultural exchange, can we talk about music, art, and cinema as a form of contribution to reconciliation? And even consumption, especially in the sense of consuming Yugoslav products or products from different regions of former Yugoslavia than different parts of the region, or Yugoslavian culture, or even commodification of Yugo nostalgia. Then we have attempts to understand how popular culture, folk music in particular, or maybe even pop music, connects the region through this consumption of culture. Then we have interethnic friendships. Can we talk about interethnic friendships as some kind of initiatives that contribute to reconciliation? And also what I would like to focus on especially is the social media initiatives and events that are happening on YouTube, TikTok, and other social media, which maybe we can talk about them as a sort of attempts to perform reconciliation, or maybe not. So my question is really, I don't really know, so I'm trying to investigate. And so if we combine the two concepts, consumption and reconciliation, can we really combine them? Does this combination make any sense? Can we say that consuming products, whether they are digital or physical, and consuming culture, whether it's digital or traditional, or even entertainment, can we talk about this as a form of reconciliation? Or maybe can we look for hidden narratives, reconciliation narratives in these practices? So some academic research projects point towards these possible contributions to the reconciliation process through turbo folk, specifically in the Balkan region, turbo folk, pop music, and commodification of Yugo nostalgia as a kind of a form of emotional, maybe reconciliation. And then this idea is not quite unique in the Balkans, as one of the famous examples is this narrative about reconciliation between Japan and South Korea through, I don't know, sushi and kimchi, popularizing culture, foods, movies, music as a type of reconciliation through consumption, but consumption in the sense of consuming physical products, but also consuming culture, consuming maybe digital products. So And the question that I was asking to myself is there something really essentially reconciliatory about consumption, or is it just completely not even important to talk about this? Why would we even talk about consumption and reconciliation? But it's worth asking the question. And I would like to juxtapose now two interesting examples of how chocolate unites and divides the region. So the example that I would pull out from my own research would be that Balkan YouTubers and also TikTokers now, but essentially YouTubers invented this genre of food tasting from tasting Japanese boxes to tasting foods from the Balkans. So an interesting type of video emerged on YouTube where YouTubers would gather maybe from different regions, from different countries, maybe from Serbia and Croatia, and then they would take, I don't know, crushed chocolates and some alternative, some, I don't know, najlepše želje or other Serbian chocolates, and then they would be tasting new varieties, new flavors, and asking themselves which chocolate is better. They would be like rating them. They would mention maybe in the title of the video that they're talking about Serbian and Croatian chocolates, but essentially they would be talking about the quality of chocolates and not the quality, they would not necessarily associate chocolates themselves with some kind of nationality. And this is an interesting example because it shows how young people gather, they talk about, they try some food, and then it's kind of, you can tell that they already understand that the relationships between Croatia and Serbia are normalized. There is no mentioning of any enmity. And on the other hand, I would like to show you another contrasting example of how chocolate really can become some kind of a nationalistic incident, and how the chocolate itself can be nationalized and used to actually strengthen enmity between, in this specific case that I'm going to show you, between Serbs and Croats again. And so I would like to, please allow me to read a very short passage from this book that you can see. So here, edited by Jody Jensen, Memory, Politics and Populism in Southeast Europe. This is a very interesting example that completely undermines this idea of reconciliation through consumption. So in this first introductory passage written by Zala Pavšič and Dimitar Nikolovsky, there is an interesting event portrayed. It says, in December 2016, a scandal that took place in the city of Dubrovnik shook the Croatian Homeland War Veterans Day. Then President of Croatia, Kolinda Grabar-Kitarović, went to a kindergarten to distribute presents as a part of the Veterans Day program when someone noticed an uninvited guest. The intruder, however, was neither among the members of the president's entourage nor among the kindergarten children, parents, priests, or journalists. The uninvited guest was hidden inside of the goodie bags that Grabar-Kitarović was distributing. Among different sweets and autographed photo of the president, there was a chocolate bar called Money. That small bar of chocolate, worth not more than 0.30 euros, managed to overshadow the entire commemorative celebration and created an international scandal. What happened? First, a parent spotted the chocolate in question and complained on Facebook. Then the parents' dissatisfaction spread through the region, leaving people in shock. Some laughed about it, but others were seriously offended. It left no one, however, indifferent. Public pressure was so great that the Grabar-Kitarović had to officially apologize to Croatian citizens and promise that she would distribute a new set of presents. But what is money, and how was a bar of chocolate able to attain the power to intervene in international politics? It is just another confectionery product that can be purchased in any shop in Croatia, not much different than its more popular neighbor on the shelf, sneakers. Money is albeit cheaper because instead of peanuts, it used rice that is produced by the Serbian company Pioneer. Even though it is regularly available in Croatian supermarkets, as the countless other Serbian products, in the context of Homeland War Veteran celebration, money was nationalized and turned into a representation of the Serbian enemy, an important symbol against which the Homeland War narrative was constructed. Thinking about these two different examples, it is we can think about this digital production of hate because we are talking about narratives that are producing and reproducing on social media. If there was no Facebook, would there be a problem with this money chocolate? Maybe not so much. So this digital production of hate, it really, I mean, about this proliferation of hate narratives on social media produced by ordinary people, and we can call it a citizen journalism, perhaps. And they are alternative in the sense that they are alternative to the official media. And so these alternative narratives, which can often include fake news, conspiracy theories, nationalist narratives, they're rapidly shared on social media. They're available to large clusters of people. They're virtually indestructible. And like once they get viral, we cannot delete them. And they influence a lot of people. And the social media, then we have to think about that social media are utilizing algorithms to censor, filter out these narratives, of course, and also prohibit the use of certain hashtags, words, formulations that can be harmful, damaging, pointing towards conspiracy theories. However, these narratives find a way to survive in different ways, perhaps by avoiding this kind of wording that would be censored, or through comments, through live streams, in closed Facebook communities, etc. And they still impact a lot of people, even when they are censored. And then algorithms, on the other hand, help distribute these narratives because of the engagement-based rating of the content. So how they function, social media algorithms, they really favor content that would attract a lot of people, that would make people comment a lot, speak about it a lot, share it a lot, retweet, etc. On the other hand, speaking about digital reconciliation, which will be this other side of digital production. So the concept of digital reconciliation already exists, and we can talk about this gradual reconciliation using digital media by perhaps sharing knowledge and conflict prevention. This is only one of the existing definitions, and the example would be, let's talk Uganda. And then when we think about this digital reconciliation, we can talk about how these concepts of transnationalism, digital reconciliation, cultural reconciliation, maybe soft power as well, how they merge, and how new political actors emerge from social media. They are influencers who are generating millions of followers across social media platforms. They engage primarily in economic activities. They foster digital reconciliation by maybe promoting friendships, tourism, consumption of products and services, and they act as political actors in a way. And even additionally, even if they're not influencers, maybe they have just a small group of followers, but they can still perform these reconciliatory activities through posting, perhaps an example would be posting memories about Srebrenica, or openly discussing reconciliation and promoting good relations. And one of the examples of how to tackle this hate on social media would be this video, Hate Sloveni, which is an independent creative project involving a group of artists from former Yugoslavia. This video addresses the problem of hate speech on social media, and essentially it parodies the typical insults aimed at different ethnic groups. Specifically, we're talking about Serbs, Croats, and Bosniaks. And they're, of course, referencing the anthem of Yugoslavia, Hey Sloveni, sorry. It generated over 1 million views, and it really created a buzz on the internet and also on traditional media. it's just one of the examples. And now I want to just start talking about Balkan influencers and how they perhaps did or did not contribute to reconciliation. So talking to BTF organizer, BTF stands for Balkan Tube Fest, I figured out that they actually had talks about and workshops about hate speech on social media, and these talks about good neighborly relations. There was also a YouTube space that was a Balkan YouTube space, and these talks about how they should all maintain good relations and how there should not be ethnic hatred. This is something that is a part of this, that used to be a part of this YouTube culture. And then economic interests really drive these influencers to get together, to have friendships and collaborations and maintain these good relations, because they attract more views and more audiences altogether. And as a result, we have something that we might call reconciliatory narratives, that they're either genuine or they are maybe part of this economic strategy of social media to kind of integrate the region for the sake of getting greater revenues. And then just to mention some of the maybe genres that emerge there. So we have these kind of games that perhaps we can call reconciliation games. It's a little bit controversial, perhaps. But there you go. I just wanted to illustrate that there are certain collaboration videos between different thousands, and they're coming from different countries. They gather together, and then they are talking about, let's guess, Serbian and Croatian words, Serbian and Bosnian, Bosnian and Croatian, Macedonian and Serbian, etc. And so this is kind of the situation where they're kind of trying to portray these relations that are already normalized. They're having fun together. They're learning about similarities and differences between their languages, and it's endearing to the audience. And there is also this phenomenon of commodifying Balkan stereotypes. Inadvertently, they're kind of creating a new common cultural identity, or are they? I'm asking a question. It is very noticeable on YouTube and also now on TikTok, this commodification of Balkan stereotypes. Balkan mothers are different to all other mothers in the world, or Balkan boyfriend, and Balkan dad, he's always has this stick in his mouth, etc. So these kind of portraying Balkan as some kind of a backwards region and using all of these stereotypes is maybe perhaps even inadvertently creating some kind of a new common cultural identity and perhaps reconciliation, because these viewers are kind of nudged towards identifying with this Balkan culture, whether they're coming from Croatia or from Macedonia or any of these countries. And we can see how it disperses to even greater region on TikTok. And what really are these reconciliation narratives in the Balkan YouTube community? So just to summarize shortly, Balkan influencers don't really address the past. They don't talk about the wars. They rather portray these neighborly relations as already normalized, that there are no problems. They're just talking about the future and about how they're having fun together and how they're traveling across the region, eating food from across the region, listening to music from across the region. Their content really feeds on cultural similarities and differences, but in this kind of a friendly way. And they use these stereotypes about Balkan culture, which is a sort of a unifying factor and inspiration for the humoristic content, which is highly engageable on social media. But the main motive really is financial gain. So the goal is attracting viewers from all over the region. And then they have the win-win situation where they can advertise the same products to larger groups of people, and they can all benefit from it. So what is the concept of Balkans or social media really? It seems that it appears as this unifying factor, but also it's highly connected to the functionality of the use of hashtags and geotags to attract this wider community. And interestingly, when asked to explain what Balkan means for them, influencers really have very different answers. A lot of them don't even think that the Balkans is a good word to describe their geographic locality or cultural locality. And some of them even talk about the Balkans as this kind of a algorithmic concept that really just attracts people from the larger community and doesn't really need anything to them. And so it's economically very useful because it allows them to create a stronger community, bigger community, and in the end, earn more money. So what is this region then? It really actually, interestingly, things have shifted between YouTube and TikTok, that actually this region is expanding. So the limits depend on which languages are being used, and which platform is being used, and what is the algorithm, what algorithms really prefer there. So I would like to emphasize the difference between the first generation of influencer, which may be primarily used YouTube, and then the second one would be the newer generation, which uses TikTok primarily. And to emphasize just how these intimate friendships and relationships were very important to this first generation of influencers. They were really gathering together. They were filming each other and themselves having fun at hotels, maybe at these festivals, or at these like concert events, parties, and also filming each other. That was because the YouTube has this long video, and it is of course appealing when they collaborate together, and also what was happening parallel to these individual initiatives were also group initiatives and workshops and roundtable debates about these interethnic relations. And you can say that this whole group of Balkan YouTubers, they were really kind of guided and advised to avoid ethnic hatred, hate speech, to prevent negative comments somehow. They were really taught to bring these, to elevate these friendly relationships. But what then happened when COVID struck, and then also the rise of TikTok coincides with this, and then these two factors disrupted this dynamic of the Balkan influencers community. So the community itself kind of stopped really existing as it was before. The dissolution of Balkan Tube Fest contributed a lot. Then there was also this mass migration to TikTok. However, we still have the Jumbus platform in Zagreb, which operates still in this old-fashioned way, gathers, let's admit, a limited number of regional influencers, but still very important influencers. And they're trying to include this TikTok community as well as YouTube community, and integrate and offer this kind of content on their channel, and also organize regional events still. But what is happening with the TikTok overtaking the scene is that there are fewer collaborations, more individualistic content, shorter content, that this idea of community is a little bit dispersed and changed. And there is more repetitive content, viral trends using English and German language, especially English, of course. And then, but what remained to exist there is, and especially emerged as a very important genre on TikTok, are these funny sketches about Balkans, about Balkan dad, mothers, sisters, boyfriends, girlfriends, how Balkan stereotypes really emerge as a sort of a important genre on TikTok. And the differences shortly is that YouTube has this tight community, while TikTok has loose community. It's more based on using hashtags, really. And the combination of hashtags really defines what is the community on TikTok, while YouTube had a physically connected community. And that algorithm really pushes the creators on YouTube towards using the same language and keeping them in the Balkan region. While the algorithm on TikTok really lets you let the creators spread across the world, and then they can, using English, they can get a wide audience, and they then spread these stereotypes about the Balkans to the wider global community, which is an interesting new phenomenon. And then, of course, what happened with TikTok is that meetings and festivals and gatherings are much not so popular anymore. And just shortly to summarize what it seems to be that Balkan is on social media, it is a hashtag, it is sort of a fluid category that isn't really fixed, doesn't have a fixed meaning. It appears also empty of meaning and appears as this floating empty signifier, also as an algorithmic concept, an algorithmic signifier, in the sense that algorithms really are deciding which content is going to be popular, how and where. Then it seems like a pretty vague concept that really defines some kind of collective identity, but we don't really know what this collective identity is. It is a patchwork of these funny content, stereotyping content, etc. Then we can talk about it as purely as an influencer marketing tool. Then in this sense, it's economic. It's also a digital product. And influencer marketing, when we talk about influencer marketing, is a sort of an economic strategy. And if we ask what is the potential for reconciliation there, it seems that it is very widely recognized that social media are actually used to disseminate hate speech and nationalist narratives, conspiracy theories, fake news, deep fakes. But what happens with this unrevealed reconciliation potential? It seems to me that this potential has not been that much examined, especially in academia. It's not really, it's underexplored, I would argue. But also that we have this idea of closed communities that are really, and tight communities that are kind of disappearing, because the idea on Facebook was that you can have a group, you can have a Facebook group. On YouTube, there were these YouTube communities, but now with TikTok and these similar social media, is kind of losing this concept of community. It's kind of this transforming in a way, and communities can be used similarly as they can be used to spread conspiracy theories, fake news, but they can also be used for reconciliation. So this is something that is kind of maybe under-researched. And I would like to just emphasize the importance of the bottom-up approach in researching both populist and reconciliation narratives, how they emerge from the ground among people in these everyday conversations, in conversations on social media, influencers and non-influencers, regular people. What really shapes these individual and collective identities? I think that social media really were impacting the public opinion and also identity. And that both populist and reconciliation narratives are really forming below the surface. And that understanding what is happening and doing ethnography, conducting ethnography and picking up these narratives is really important to understand really what is going on in politics in general. And finally, my experience of observing the Balkan influencer community since 2016 really illuminated some of these reconciliation practices to me, or the practices that maybe we can call reconciliation, or even ask just whether they are reconciliatory or not. So it kind of remains under the radar. And some periphery observations that I have is that these reconciliation practices really also include some individual activities like commemorating war events such as Srebrenica, and perhaps individuals from Serbian ethnic group. When they strive to contribute themselves to the reconciliation, they really are trying to acknowledge the genocide and commemorate victims. So these are very individual acts, but can still be observed as some reconciliation practices that still remain under the radar. And then that these reconciliation practices could be present in some really not so visible, maybe dark corners of the internet, such as video games, streams, or Omegle. Nationalist right-wing narratives as well are present there, but also we're neglecting the fact that they are also being challenged by these alternative reconciliation narratives through these personal conversations that are happening. And some of them end up on YouTube, and some of them end up having like thousands of views. And so we should think about these reconciliation practices on the one hand, and these enmity, commemoration of war crimes on the other. And in both cases, algorithms really should be examined because they organize visibility on social media and kind of nudge these digital consumers, let's call them that way, towards certain opinions and while keeping them in their filter box. So researching the algorithms themselves is important because directly or indirectly, whether we are investigating themselves or whether we're investigating how certain users really encounter them, how they perceive them, how they live with them, and how they create the content with them, what is their experience. Algorithms, this really helps us understand how certain stories, whether they're populist or not populist, are being produced, reproduced, and then disseminated. And the final word, I would just say something about algorithms and this identity production, and how this, my field research really showed me how this logic of digital production substantially really impacts the content of social media, how the choice of the world Balkan really emerged from the logic of the algorithms themselves, how algorithms disseminate content on YouTube. It really, the word Balkan is used because it was just a very useful tool in this economic, let's say, digital production, say. And that there is this certain shift towards repetitive content, not very original, and it's also influenced by TikTok algorithm a lot, in the sense that what we have left as this identity of these influencers is some of the, I'm just throwing out there for the final words. I just want to give you a few questions that I asked myself. What even is identity anymore on social media? Given that we have this repetitive content, and then shift towards commodifying these Balkan stereotypes and promoting, in a way, this backwardness of the region to the global community. And it really, the impact of TikTok's algorithm, and finally, how these identities seem to be assembled on social media and through this consumption, through this kind of a consumption or prosumption, production and consumption as part of one united process, and how these identities seem to be assembled from building blocks that are already made, that are algorithmic, that are transformable. And it really shows how algorithms really orchestrate this digital production and consumption. Thank you very much. I would like to end with this and stop sharing the screen. And I would like to hear the comments and questions.
Thank you very much, Ivana, for your very interesting lecture. So as the chair of this session, I'm gonna take the liberty to give you a few of my observations and comments, and I'll be very happy to hear your response and then open the floor to everybody else present on today's seminar. So definitely for me, the part about the pioneer chocolate was very, very fascinating. And I'm curious, can we say that such narratives on Facebook are actually very, very clearly undoubtedly hate narratives and should be reported as such and sanctioned as such, or is this already considered as censorship on Facebook? On the other hand, where in this case is the responsibility of the media? So if you ask me if they did not pick the story up, it would just be considered as marginal and it would fade away in this many other events taking place on a daily basis. Also, what I'm puzzled about is the response by Kolinda Grabar-Kitarović, who apologized, but could easily also react as with a statement saying that such a reaction is over dramatic. But is this really so important that she could be in the threat of her political position if she actually reacted in this way? So in line with your bottom-up approach, you've very nicely outlined peace building and reconciliation narratives in influencer cultures, but I'm interested, how about political figures? Do they use their social media accounts to spread more peaceful narratives, or rather to spread friction among their nation? And just to conclude, I'd like to conclude with chocolate, of course. In Slovenia, we still have a crash store, a very neatly organized crash store on Čopova ulica, which is one of the more popular streets in Ljubljana. And I'm interested if there is still a crash store somewhere in Belgrade.
Thank you so much, Zala. I was also thinking about this idea of responsibility. Whose responsibility is it really, and how is it shared responsibility? And is there any responsibility of anyone anymore in this world of constant consumption and production? So I think that one of the problems is that politics is really become economic, and it's all about the survival of politicians in power, rather than really taking some responsibility for consequences of their actions. And the other thing that I wanted to maybe emphasize here, an idea that perhaps traditional media are really feeding on this popularity of narratives on social media. They kind of steal the idea, they steal content. They pick up on what is popular on social media, and then they take a piece of the cake. I mean, in the sense that they take, if something is popular, they will immediately publish, and they will then compete with social media themselves. And on social media, they will compete for attention. And this is something that is perhaps very dangerous for societies. About the crash shop, unfortunately, I cannot 100% say that I'm sure. Maybe I haven't been to Belgrade for a long time. Maybe that's the problem. I do clearly remember shop in Zagreb, but I know that we have Star shop, but I'm not sure we have a Crash shop. I think Crash is in every store in Belgrade, Serbia, in all the shops, but Crash shop I think we don't have. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think Valeria also has a question.
Hi, Ivana. Yes, thank you for a really interesting presentation. Took us through the various nooks of the internet. My question is not as an expert of your subject matter at all. So I assume this is maybe something that you've also been thinking about, but I would like to invite you to maybe say more around this potential framework for interpreting this Balkan identity that is construed in social media. Because to me, there's something there, and I wonder whether that is to you, that if that rings true to you, whether this Balkan hashtagging or adding that to titles to make them more viral, does that connote some kind of internalized racism moment? So to put it in another words, once the content creators are marketing themselves to a global audience that is modeled onto this Western subject that speaks English and has particular tastes online and behaviors, then to make fun of your own mom and tata and in the name of the Balkan, because the Balkan is it's a legible identity, is a legible place somehow for Americanized global pop cultures. How much of that can we then, so this is the first part of the question. The second part would be, if there is some of that, I then wonder what would then be the consequences for addressing and understanding this as a reconciliatory process within the region itself. Where does it leave us? Shifting like the audience, the imaginary audience, of course, because online interactions are based on self-perception first, and yeah, less on real interaction. Yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you for the question. These are the questions that I'm asking myself constantly, and I think that this auto-stereotyping, it functions in an interesting way, in the sense that Balkan really is something that sells, and this is what influencers are thinking about the concept of the Balkans, and not really as something that they're deeply thinking about. And this is coming from the interviews that I did with them. I don't see that they're really thinking too deeply about it. Even those who are constantly building their content on the idea of this Balkan culture and stereotyping, they just think, oh, it attracts views, I'm going to use it. And this is something interesting also that shows how this is really all about economic side of social media. And where does this leave us with reconciliation? I don't know, honestly, because whether these are just the two sides of the same coin, these commodification of reconciliation and commodification of enmity on the other side. These are the thoughts that I'm currently with. Thank you. And, Charles, you have a question?
Yes, hello. Thank you for the presentation. Really interesting and fresh approach with the kind of, especially with the comparison between YouTube and TikTok. And hello from University of Leuven in Belgium. I just returned home from Southeast Europe. But anyway, the question I have is, how has this kind of influenced your own writing and your own use of the term Balkan as you publish or discuss or present? Because I've been picking up on a little bit of a debate, shall we say, or tension with, should we be using the word Balkan? Should we be using Southeast Europe? Should we make a point about saying this is the reason why I'm not using Balkan when I'm describing my field work, or when somebody from the region is describing what they do and where they're situated at. And so I was kind of curious to see how that has influenced you, if you use the word Balkan while you're, I mean, obviously in the title of this particular presentation and everything, but in the published work and everything, how has that modified it? Because I'm still kind of trying to feel my way through that as well and see where I want to come out on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is a very interesting question, and I keep thinking, going back to Maria Todorova, when she tried to salvage the concept of the Balkans as it being frequently used as a pejorative, really. And what I see happening also on social media, that it is contributing to this negative side of the concept. But which concept would be which concept would be better to use to explain and to describe the region or the culture, whether it makes any sense or not. I think that any kind of conglomeration of these countries would create some kind of a debate, whether it's kind of marginalizing. In any sort of way, it's pejorative, whatever you use. If you use Western Balkans, well, what the hell is Western Balkans? What if we're using the concept Southeast Europe, then what is South? In any way, it's kind of showing that it's not this other. It's not the West, it's not the center, it's Southeast. So it's kind of always, I'm thinking that I don't really know which concept would I prefer. And what is also interesting is when I did the interviews with these influencers, for example, they are not sure what would be. Many of them say we don't like Balkans as the word to explain talk about the region, but we are not sure which word would be added. Still, I don't know if you understand what I mean.
Absolutely, completely tracking along with that. I've kind of started to err on the side to use the cliche of going with Southeast Europe, trying to diminish somewhat of that othering that seems to be so implicit and so critical to the term Balkans, where it's always that's, you know, say that's somebody in Belgium, they're thinking, oh, that's over there, it's someplace else. You say Southeast Europe, at least you're bringing the keyword Europe into the Belgian social imaginary when you're having this conversation. They're like, okay, we're talking about where I'm situated at. But thank you for the presentation.
Thank you so much.
Any further questions? If not, oh, there is
Sanya. Hi, Sanya, good to see you.
Nice seeing you, Ivana. It's not related to the presentation, but it's related to your work and the next step that you have ahead of you. In light of all that is happening well, firstly in Europe, but generally in the world nowadays, again. Your focus was on the region, but did you contrast it, compare it to some other regions as well? And these usages that go into, as you said, making a phenomenon conceptually pejorative in terms of the thing. Now I relate to what I experienced during the last wars on the Balkans. What we had and that strong dissipation and rise of populism and nationalist politics that made even atrocities and drove us into a big war on the European soil, somehow anticipated things that were happening in Western Europe with the growth of right-wing politics, and then Ukraine, what was happening during the Orange Revolution and what is happening now. So it's more general question. What do you, what are you going to do next in light of all this, in light of this very heavy context?
Thank you very much. Well, my problem is that I always outline several directions where my research can move towards, and it really is this production of narratives on social media, and the digital ethnography research can go into so many directions. One of the phenomena really that I noticed is also this severe commodification of war in Ukraine, and how it was abused to have this economic gain, and you have influencers who are literally sharing their, for example, their refugee journeys from escaping from Ukraine, from the bombs, and from not having food or clothes, then to escaping to a beautiful place in Italy. Some of these influencers published books, and they really earned money on this whole process. This is one of the things, and then also how these populist narratives are being used in the way that they function as a tool or armor in these cyber wars. They're being literally they're being used for cyber wars, and exactly as the war in Ukraine emerged, immediately in the Balkans, we had these narratives about how there will be again some kind of war in the Balkans. And I'm thinking that perhaps it should be investigated whether these narratives are also a part of the cyber war, since the countries of the region are still exhausted from the wars in the 90s. They do not have any potential to make new wars. But these talks of these narratives about potential wars are proxy war in a sense. So these are some thoughts that I had, and constantly new events are showing new geopolitical events are really showing different directions where my research can move. Also, the phenomenon of ecological warriors on social media, how they are really precarious workers who are trying to fight for against extinction, like Extinction Rebellion, Greta Thunberg, and of course the anti-lithium mining warriors in Serbia. These are also some kind of interesting phenomena that I'm starting to dig into, and there are a lot of ways this can be expanded. Thank you so much for your question.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else would like to share your ideas with Ivana and the rest of the audience? Miklos, go ahead.
Thank you, Ivana, for this very interesting presentation. So my question would be that this is a qualitative research, but I guess the whole point and effect of such reconciliatory contents, for example, on social media, is that they bring about some attitudinal change. So more adversary groups become less adversary after I guess consuming such content, and being subject to such an environment when these even like seemingly petty things like a piece of chocolate can cause some change about thinking about another group. So are you aware of any work that tries to measure these effects?
Thank you. In the sense of quantitative, probably research, I was thinking about, of course, maybe social media, social network analysis, and but the problem with quantification that I have is kind of an internal one, where I think that maybe quantifying is always requires the precise input, and I'm afraid of these quantifiable measurements. I'm afraid of quantifying this and analyzing the impact through the numbers, because it can always be kind of misleading in my opinion. So when I was thinking about establishing collaborations to have this kind of a combination of qualitative and quantitative research, because this is perhaps the only way I would accept to go into this quantification. I just want it as a sort of merge of two tools, and I'm thinking about serious collaborations in the sense of also agent-based modeling and social network analysis, but I really think that they are just ornaments rather to the qualitative research. It's just my opinion. Every researcher is entitled to the opinion on this. And I think that this whole quantification of social sciences is leading us to the situation where we will not just be completely, our research will be irrelevant if we shift the focus to quantifying. That's my personal opinion.
I'm a philosopher, so I have no problems with qualitative research, so it's not about that. But and I also guess it's extremely difficult to be able to measure these kind of effects when there is such an awful amount of micro producers of such contents, and I guess it's very difficult to really just insulate a given effect of a given producer of a content. Thank you anyway.
Thank you so much. It's really easy, I think, to get the numbers wrong when you have such huge quantities.
Christian has another question. We
Can
can't
you hear me?
We can't hear you.
Now okay. I would like to thank you, Ivana, for this excellent presentation, and I would like to ask her if it happened to her to discover something about the relation between, for example, Serbian and Albanian from Kosovo in this process of reconciliation, and if she found something that could be different or similar to her current presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the question. I was researching influencers who were speaking the similar languages, so to say. And unfortunately, Albanians were, because of their language is so different, like even so much different than Slovenian, to these languages that are similar, so to this family of languages, Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian, Macedonian, and Montenegrin. So that is the reason why I haven't researched it all. But I did start researching that actually on TikTok, it is very interesting how on TikTok, when TikTokers are using English and German, because either migrants who migrated to Germany or to some other countries, and that they are using they're using English or German to talk about Balkan culture, and you can no longer distinguish whether someone. You have to really dig deep to find out whether someone is actually Albanian or Serbian. There are not too many differences, and this was something that I started researching on TikTok, and this is the phenomenon where I can see that. You know, it's this new world of individualized hashtag content, repetitive content, bland content, where you don't even have local languages used anymore. Then, interestingly, Albanians come into this game, this Balkan crew, which they were excluded from in this YouTube community because simply they were not using the similar language. Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I have a question. I didn't raise hand, and a comment. So I was wondering, is the percentage of these influencers who are migrants, for example, in America? I think that Balkan Dad, he was born in America, but he's visiting Belgrade like every few months. Is the percentage of these kind migrant influences bigger than the ones that are still in the Balkan area? And should I say the comment also? So my comment is more for further thinking about the trap music scene in the Balkan, because I think it's included in this influencer sphere, but it's more not so in digital sphere, it's more in live. And I was wondering if you had a chance to investigate something based on this trap scene. And thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very interesting. Yes, definitely. I don't know. I mean, I cannot clearly say what is the percentage of influencers, but I think that certain influencers like Balkan Dad, who have this who have this comparison between American and Balkan culture, they emerged as really popular. But whether I think that the percentage, of course, is bigger of people who are still in the Balkans, but I cannot say, because of course, I need I need to quantify. I need some kind of a quantitative research to be able to give you the precise numbers about this. And about the trap music scene, it's also, of course, present in social media, and that you have all of these like authors of trap music who are then also influencers. And this is the interesting also phenomenon, and how music, how different types of music unite the region. From Lepa Brena, whose picture had to, of course, put in this presentation, to these new types of music. Of course, I didn't expand into researching this physical phenomenon still, but I am aware of this whole community creation from music. That's pretty important. Thank you for mentioning it.
Thank you very much.
Actually, if I may jump in onto Tina's point about trap, the interesting part is that basically, even if you check out the previous generation of rappers, so people like Edo Maika or even Marcello or Frankie, you'd see basically a community who is very explicit about supporting anti-nationalism, having very much very regular political texts, and even you would have then Frankie collaborating with the Institute for War and Peace Reporting, so actually doing a piece for the younger generation why reconciliation in fact is important. So that might also be a very interesting connection as well.
Yes, these musicians who are criticizing the official politics, of course, and this politics is more nationalist than the you know what I'm gonna say. I'm a little tired, but you know how this criticism, these political narratives are really. The music is really important place where we can look for these narratives, whether they are populist or reconciliatory this should be explored as well, and it's merging in with this digital sphere of digital production, because the creators of music are always also on social media, so it's a very, very important merge, I think.
Anybody else want to add something? If not, I think we had a very prolific seminar, and thank you very much, Ivana, for your presentation, and everybody else who took their time and energy to respond and made this talk even more interesting. And now I'm handing over the words to Valeria to make a proper wrap up of this session.
Thank you, Zala. Thank you, Ivana. Thank you, everyone. I'm sure conversations will continue. Let's be in touch. And just to let you all know, the recording of today's session will become available shortly on our YouTube channel for the CAS Institute that has links from our under construction at the moment webpage, but it's almost there, and various social medias, staying on topic, basically unavoidable these days. Once again, thank you, everyone. Have a great day, lunch, other commitments today. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was great to be with you. Bye.